I'm here with the lovely Maria of Future Palace to talk about Distortion, out September 6th on a Rising Empire. It's always a pleasure to see you. It's always a pleasure to talk to you. I was so happy that Future Palace was putting out a new record because that meant we got to chat about it. And welcome to the channel. Thank you very much for taking the time.
Hello, thanks for having us again, or me. I'm alone again. And yeah, I'm very excited to talk about this album. We're very excited to release it soon. It's already almost August, so time is flying. It's insane.
Yeah. You blink and the album release date will be upon you. So
Yes.
let's talk about you as a musician and where does this album sit? So when you look at Distortion, when you look at the finished product, what portion of the path that you've carved for yourself as a musician does this album represent?
I think this album represents a heavier side of us since we grew into it these past years. Because with Run, we just discovered our heaviness, to say so. I screamed the first time again for after a few years. I've never really learned it, never screamed much in my life. And I remember we got the demo of Paradise back then. It was the first song we wrote for Run. And I started screaming for that because I was like, this needs screams. And now we toured Europe a few times. We've been on crazy, insane tours. We played insane festivals, and we're going to play huge festivals soon as well. And we could just learn so much more how it works on stage, how the crowd receives everything and reacts. And I grew so much as a singer and as a vocalist these past years. I had to, like, on a hard way, I had to learn how to do this because I was losing my voice on the road quite a few times, had a bit of struggles, and I'm still learning right now, doing some coaching. And yeah, it is, I think you can hear that we grew into that heaviness a bit more, but also still we are creative and try to play around a bit with sounds and different genres, just like we always do. And that is definitely also on that album.
And what memories do you take from the recording process? Do you look back at the making of this album and there's some fond memories that you can relate?
To be honest, it wasn't that fun. It was more pain for me because I had an infected wisdom tooth, or I just had a wisdom tooth surgery right before the studio on New Year's Eve, or one day before New Year's Eve, and we had to delay the entire studio thing. And it was all just a pain in the ass. It was all last minute, last second finish, also from my side. I've done all the lyrics and vocal demos in like 1 week while having like lots of pain and barely being able to open my jaw. And in the studio, I also got to know that I have, next to the removed tooth, that I have a root canal infection, and that right after, when I get out of the studio, I'll have to get another treatment from the dentist. So yeah, I was just on antibiotics and totally drained and totally on my edge and limit. And but still, we had great moments in there. But it was very up and down for me personally because we were just, it was Manuel and I all alone in an Airbnb for like many hours, and we shared, like, we lived together, and we just actually woke up at ate breakfast, went to the studio, worked. Then we, after the studio, we did our own work that we still have to do to live, and then we fell asleep. So we just felt like a working camp or something. Like we just existed to do this album, like really just existed. So I cannot really call it fun, but I'm very surprised and happy that it just worked and that we had that power in us
Yeah, well,
somewhere.
look at the bright side. With the wisdom tooth out, you're not going to have to worry about that on the next record.
Not with the one, but I still have three left. And
Oh, shit.
because there was an emergency, they said we can only do one. We don't have time. There are other emergencies today. And I'm like, and now I have to be scared of all the other three because they're all very crooked and very, very close to my teeth. So it's just a, a miracle that nothing happened yet, but I will get them out September when our album is released. So that will be my release party. Again, this entire album could be called Wisdom Tooth, to be honest. Not even Distortion.
I think there's at least a song. At the very least, it deserves a song.
It does. But the anger in it is real.
And that kind of takes me to my next question because I heard about the story of the wisdom teeth and the root canal, and then when I'm listening to the album vocally, I don't see any impediment. Like if anything on this album vocally, you were looser and angrier, and that came really across well in the vocals because it created a more warm balance between the cleans and the heavier side of your vocal range. So how did you manage to do a delivery like this on an album like this with that backdrop of everything that was happening inside of your mouth?
I think, thank you first of all that you still liked it, but
I
we are
love it.
also happy with how it turned out. And as I said, surprised. I always kind of surprise myself with where I get the extra push of energy or passion. It is, I think. I cannot tell you, but I think it is just really being on tour and being live and experiencing all of that stuff. And I've just learned so much more on the road. And we just had our headline tour, our first European headline tour, which ended in December. And I had that surgery in December. So it was still pretty close to the headline tour where we were like, we're saying so much and screamed so much. That was our longest set also we've ever played. I think it was like 18 minutes or something. Really long for us. And I was kind of still warmed up, I think. And that was the lucky thing for me because I think if I would have had like maybe 3, 5 months off in between with just like illness, it would have turned out worse. I did have some struggles in the studio, I noticed, because my vocals were not 100% rested, or my body, let's say so. I did have some vocal loss issues in the beginning because it was quite a lot pressure from my voice right away, right after being so exhausted body wise. And I never had that before. And I think it is because, yeah, of that. So it wasn't as comfortable as usual, but I took my breaks. We all respected that. I drank a lot of tea. And then at the end, it got better and better. And I was, yeah, very comfortable at the end of the studio experience. And I hope you can hear that.
Yeah, and it's funny that you say that because listening to the album, and it was something that I mentioned on my album review that I've recorded, is that I felt like your voice at times you've took it, at least to me when I listen to it, it feels like you're taking it all the way to the edge where it's about to break and it's about to crack, but it doesn't. It reaches like that wall and kind of comes right back again into a more comfortable spot. But there are certain moments in certain songs where as a listener I feel like you're about to fall apart almost vocally, but you
Mm.
never do. You always have this elastic band that just brings you right back to a more comfortable zone.
Yeah, in general, this album, vocal wise, like clean vocal wise, is a lot lower than the last one because we barely have many high choruses. It was kind of discussion in the studio. Now I'm actually happy that our producers pushed me to go higher with some songs because I was kind of sick of singing super high, also live. I kind of like it, but since I had so many struggles with screaming and clean singing, that's what I mean with experience. I didn't know before how heavy that is on your voice because first of all, it is hard to be a singer and a screamer at the same time. But I'm not only just a singer; I sing very, very high, like very high songs. Run was had so many hard songs on there, and I have a very big. I want to be the best I can be all the time, and if I ruin one song or one show, it really kills me. Like I get super depressed and very, very angry. And to have that feeling that sometimes your voice or your body has more power over you than yourself is just messed a lot with me on these past shows, that I couldn't be my best version for me personally. So I was thinking maybe we should like drop some songs here and there, or plus I also want to improve as a vocalist, so that's why I'm taking coaching right now. But yeah, I was intentionally trying to do some songs that are a little lower, so they are more comfortable and always perfect for me to sing. And also, not only because it's more comfortable, but I also felt like I haven't shown the side of my voice yet, like very low. And when I talk, I think you can hear I'm rather low, a low vocalist actually, and it felt more natural to me. And yeah, I think that is a new thing also to discover. And also some like rap parts I tried, even though I'm not a rapper at all. Just as I wasn't really a screamer, I just like to challenge myself Well, I'm already in a challenge, of course.
Just add another problem to the
Yeah.
growing list of problems that you already have. Uh,
Yeah, that is my life.
and that lower delivery, I think it also adds extra darkness to the songs. And this
Mm,
album, there's obviously some darkness to the record when you look at the topics, when you look
yeah.
at the lyrical content. So coming in at a lower pace, it emphasizes a lot of that darkness on the tracks.
It does, and that's also one thing why I decided to do that. For example, with Dream State, I think it has the lowest vocal parts we've ever done, and that was very intentionally. I already raised the key, so the chorus is like bright enough and cool and powerful enough, but I wanted the verses to stay super low because I feel like they sound very like weak and very how it feels in that moment. If you
Mhm.
feel very depressed, you wouldn't like nah nah nah, you wouldn't like sing loudly and high. It's just really like a magnet in the, it's like that kind of feeling that I wanted to convey. And I'm glad that nobody like argued against that, like, oh, that's very low, even though it is pretty low, like right on the edge. But I think that sounds, I like that sound. It's yeah, that's something
Well,
new.
and that's my favorite song on the record. So you nailed it.
Thanks.
I
Nice, thank you so much.
Well, I mean, the album is filled with singles, and I mean that from a quality standpoint. You could pick any song, and
Mm.
that song could be a single. But in a sea of greatness, that song, to me, the emotional aspect of that track really resonated with me. So I really liked your vocal delivery on that song.
Thank you. Yeah, that was the goal to really like, and with every song, my goal is to get the emotion as close as it gets, like to the listener. And I will try tiny things that maybe others wouldn't notice while delivering it. Also, with one song, Paralysis, Panic Paralysis, it's not a single, but we always work with every song as it is a single, almost every song. One song not, like they take what they want as the song. We were intentionally using it as like an art piece because that is the room you have when you do an album. You should also use the playground. But I was making sure that a lot of lines are very real. Also, Decoravia, like yeah, it's hard to explain, but it's the delivery is so important. And I'm not a native speaker, so I first of all have to pay so much attention to how I pronounce things. But I don't want to lose my focus on the emotion because it can get lost when you're in the studio because you are so focused on singing it perfectly. Then your jaw hurts. Then you're like, oh, how is this pronounced? But then I'm like, no, no, we do it over and over again until it feels also how it's supposed to feel, like weak or strong or in pain. And I'm glad that I always take that time with that because if I wouldn't do it, it would probably sound more like glazed or I don't even know, like more
More
straight and
linear. Yeah.
yeah, more linear and more like I wouldn't enjoy that. I think it's already really produced. Like you can hear it as very like compressed vocals and it's not like a rock band from a garage or something that is like
Mhm.
really raw. But I always make sure I want to make sure that these elements stay in some imperfection in between. I think makes it cooler.
And how did the partnership with Charlie Rolfe came about for you guys to work on a song together?
We talked online already. It was very natural and lucky that we just connected. I don't even know how. I think she followed us or something. And we before we done the feature, we've never met. Now we've met actually. She's very very nice in her band. So yeah, sh- people always compared us to each other. So we heard of each other's names, the bands. Of course, female vocalists that scream and sing. People have to tell you who they are. But I think it is just, yeah, I think it's just what it is. But I was always a fan of them as well. Yeah, I love the music they did, the music videos, and yeah, that just happened naturally. We talked, and I told her about the topic and asked her if she wants to join because I really wanted a female vocalist on this who also screams, and she was a perfect fit for that.
Yeah, there's a line in there where I can't remember now of the song. Actually, I don't even remember if it's the song that you guys did together, where you say something like, I'm paraphrasing here, but would you treat me differently if I was a guy, or would you talk to me
Yeah.
differently? And I thought that was so interesting. It spoke to me immediately. When that came on the track, I stopped for a little minute to pay more attention to what was coming next, because I don't think sometimes you hear enough, things like that, feelings like those coming out from a female vocalist in a business that's pretty much male dominated. Was it important for you to have that line there? What does it mean to you, really, at its deepest?
Oh yeah, it was very important to me. If I was a man, yeah, would you talk to me the same
The
way?
same way,
Something
yeah,
like that.
something
Yeah.
along those lines, yeah.
Um, yeah, I mean that song had many different influences. It's not just one topic, it is a lot. And that's why I struggled so much with these lyrics, because I was trying to put actually way too many topics into one song. Like my own experience, the world experience, then the genre experience. And it's a big mix out of all of that. And I was just purely focusing on that anger that you feel. And I've collected a lot of anger inside of me, just being a woman in this world, and here in Berlin, just going out on the streets, in jobs, also on tour. It can happen anywhere, and that's sad, because I was hoping that in this music world it wouldn't happen, and it mainly doesn't happen so far, and that's very, very nice. But I've asked myself that question a lot of times, like, if I was a man, would this have happened the same way? And I can tell, like, take so many different stories where I'm very, very sure that it would not have happened that way. So yeah, that is what this means. It's being treated not equally, which made me very, very angry.
It touched my heart when you sang that line there, and it really perked my ears to pay attention to what the message was, because I don't think a lot of people sometimes want to talk about it or be open about it, because they want to give this image or create this image that everything is okay and I'm
Mhm.
treated no differently, just because it gives you perhaps a little bit more a sense of empowerment. But I think talking about it, the negativity that sometimes comes your way, I think that's far more empowerment. There's more empowering a message in there, because it also allows other people then to see what you're doing and then feel
Yeah.
empowered to do the same thing.
Yeah, I noticed that there are not many songs in that genre about that topic, so I really felt the need to do that, and really, really wanted someone else to sing it with me, because I knew that almost every woman in this genre, in this world, can relate to these lyrics. And that's what I wanted to do, to empower people, but also to point out on festival stages, because I was thinking, when I had this arena tour, when we supported Electric Callboy, I really doubted myself, or like asked myself, how do I deserve such a big stage and so many people listening to me? And with this album, I really wanted to even more use that space and all these people that listen to me for a good reason and a good purpose. And there has been one documentary, for example, about German festivals, and how there are still sexual abuse, how still sexual abuse happening on these festivals, and they even like sold weird band, like rapey singers, merch. And there are many artists also that do very disgusting stuff, and that is very not respecting women at all. And I was like, well, I'm gonna be that rock star now, stand on stage that this person might also stand on, but tell a different story, and not only get celebrated by what a hot of a man I am, what a rock star I am, and how many girls I can get backstage, but no, I'm also now on that backstage, and I will look at you and judge you for being an asshole. That's kind of what it is, also.
And I'm happy that you did it, because you did it with incredible strength and class. And I just wanted to mention that, so that you know that that line, it didn't get lost in my listening
Mm,
experience. I heard
nice.
you. I heard you, and I
Thank
heard
you.
the
Yeah,
song. I thought
I'm
was
glad.
super powerful. I thought was incredible. And when we look at these songs that you write, and the lyrics that you write, do you sometimes wonder how far you can go on a personal side? Because once you pick up the mic and you go on stage and you have to perform, if there is a demon hidden within that song, that demon is going to come out every night.
Oh yeah, I actually struggle, yeah, with that, or I've struggled with that. I noticed, for example, on that Electric Callboy tour, the contrast, let's say, between us as bands was pretty big, musically
I would
and
say, I would say.
lyrics wise. it couldn't actually be almost bigger. That's why I was also like, okay, this is gonna be a challenge because we will be facing a party crowd, and we have very depressing songs also about domestic violence, where I usually do a speech before that that is very, very intimate and emotional. So we kind of had to adapt to the crowd. But I knew I didn't want to adapt 100% because we are still us, and we do carry our messages that are very open and that make you very, yeah, wounded, or you could get very easily wounded or attacked. And I said at least one song needs a speech, and that's always Paradise, where I always openly talk about depression. And it doesn't really get easier because I really want to be honest with the speech every time. And if you want to be authentic and honest, you have to feel it a bit. Because I could do the autopilot thing and just talk, talk, talk the same phrasing every time. But I always at that moment try to really reconnect with myself and be like, I'm just this person, and I want to tell everyone that they should believe in themselves because I'm also just a normal person. And it is weird. It is very weird, and it feels very dramatic also sometimes to like cry on stage and be like, yeah, I have it like, oh, my life is so hard, and even there's so many more bigger problems also in this world. So yeah, I do struggle with that. Also with like the echoes of disparity, and it is always really hard to tell something without telling it 100%. Like you cannot just sit there and like tell somebody all the things you've been through. Um, so yeah, you have to keep a little balance between being very authentic and real, but also kind of having that border with yourself where it doesn't cross really. So that is sometimes hard to manage. For example, when we play in our hometown, or there are sometimes shows at specific places that are very emotional to me for different reasons. And one is always Berlin because it's our hometown. And on our recent headline tour, there was my family there, and I have like there's so much background with me and my family, like also emotionally. And my first ever band was there, and many, many people. So that was so hard for me to perform and speak all that stuff out because I know they know 100% what I am and who I am and what these songs mean, really. And in these moments, I'm like, I wish I would do party music right now. I really wish I would do another song right now and not talk about myself.
I was gonna say it must be really hard to open up your heart to the audience when you know they're there for Pump It.
Yes. And also, ironically, I was like joining on that fuckboy feature, which is like lyrically so far from anything we do, really. But it was kind of nice because it was easy for us to shut our minds off and actually have fun on that tour. That was, I think, the funniest tour we've ever had because everyone was so professional still and so nice from the Electric Callback crew and the members, of course. And it was just so much positivity, and the crowd nicely was very, very open-minded. That is a pro point for music like that, that people don't come to judge you, but they come to have a good time. And we could really tell that, yeah, they wanted to have a good time and really tried to connect with us. But when we played the festival with them, they've done the Escalation Fest. Electric Colby runs their own
Mhm.
festival. There I could tell a little bit more that we kind of, yeah, pointed out a bit because we were like the first band, no, the second band, and the band before us was like a party drunk party band with like beer and whatever. And then it was us, then a bit of very, very heavy metalcore that was just like, ah, and then once again, like getting drunk and yeah, party stuff. So yeah, that day I felt a bit, it felt a bit off to be honest, but it went surprisingly well. Besides that, we gained a lot of fans from that tour. That was so cool. So sometimes there are people in there that want to have a good time, but also can relate to what you say.
I just hope the guys decide to bring you to North America next time they come back. I would
Oh
love to
yeah,
see Future Palace in North America opening up for Electric Callboy. I think it would be extremely well received, and I think you guys would do phenomenally well here because you guys are a great band and you make great music. And this
thanks.
album, Distortion, it's always so cliche to say, but this is your guys' best record, in my opinion, today.
Thank you.
Even though it sounds super
Oh.
cliche of me to say that, because the new
No, but
record is
thanks.
always
Yeah.
the best record, but I've seen such an evolution in the sound, in your voice, and the way you guys approach a record. Even in the design of the album, this album
Mhm.
feels a lot more like a record than the
Yeah,
previous album. And not to say that the
yeah,
previous album wasn't good, but this one is good individually and as the songs are concerned, but it's also good as the collective.
yeah. Thank you. I think that's also part of learning how to be a band because there's no school or anything teaching you how to write an album. And we just did try and error pretty much. We didn't have much budget also on our first album, for example. My best friend did the album cover and she didn't even know how to like render really. That's the cage. She didn't really know. We were like, it was all DIY, like lots of things were DIY. With Run, it was the first time with a bit of more budget, but that still doesn't mean you make the right decisions. And we were just also a little bit overwhelmed. And this time I knew I had a bit of experience. I was like, okay, I don't want this and this to happen again. We don't want to throw away too much money on that note. Even though, to be honest, we had issues with that album cover. There were more issues, so big issues that we sent the album cover to a label and they begged us to change it. And we changed it. That never happened before. But the entire concept of the album, I was sitting in the on the bus on tour, I think, or somewhere, and I created this mood board because I really, really wanted it to be more what I like visually. Because I always struggle with how ideas get translated in the end, and I feel like it's oftentimes not really what I wanted. And this time, I was trying really, really hard to be as specific as I can with my vision. So no matter who will do it in the end, there's barely any room to mess it up. So I was looking at the colors, I was looking for fonts, I was looking at this Chrome theme and had like very many different mood board pages and sent it to the guys and was like, what do you think? Let's do this entire line, this entire look on social media everywhere. Like I really want a better aesthetic this time because I wasn't too happy with Run, to be honest. I it kind of worked. It was all right, but it was not my personal taste and not really 100% what I wanted. And I feel like this time it's way more, I can way more relate with it and it's way closer to the idea I had originally. So I'm very glad you can see that because I can see it too. And I'm relieved that it's now more of a red line.
But now the question is that censored cover ever going to make the light of day? Like, are you guys ever going to let fans take a look at what could have been?
Yeah, it is not removed 100%. So I was originally a head on the cover, like a distorted head that is like crying, and it is now on the booklet cover. So we still included that design somehow, but it's just not on the cover anymore. And we also will use this head somewhere else. But I get it. Our label was like, this looks so EDM. Like, this does not look metal at all. And I was like, well, that's a good thing, actually, because I hate doing things like other people do it. And also, Manuel was like, yeah, I love that, actually. Like, yeah, we want to be different. So that's cool. And then we had a little internal discussion how smart it would be because the album cover now, being pretty simple, already points out quite a lot because of the colors. So we decided, okay, let's keep it simple. That works as well. And yeah, but the head is still there to be used.
One last question for you. If you could go back in time, what advice would you give a young Maria getting started with Future Palace, working on that debut record?
Oh, that's a very tough question because it is very different from what I thought it is, to be honest. Very different. I was, it's just being young, I think. I was romanticizing this a lot. And I idolized this also a lot, this job, this yeah, being an artist. And I thought it's way more music than everything else. And I think kind of depends on the stage you're at. Maybe when we talk again in 2 or 3 years, I'll be at that point what my teenage self was like dreaming about. Um, so I would only tell her one thing, not to kill the mood, to tell her that she'll make it, even though it doesn't seem like it right now. And I noticed that I reconnected with my teenage self again when I was at Nova Rock, for example, because you can also on that album, that's a topic, you can really get lost with your emotions sometimes and just see the negative and the work because it is an insane amount of work and power you have to have for this. But I was standing there and listening to Avril Lavigne for the first time ever in my life live. And she was one of my main idols when I was in like 6th grade, and one of the first songs I ever learned. And that was the moment that I really, really like went back to my teenage self and was like, oh my God, you actually like made it here. You played the same festival as Avril Lavigne. Like, you are here, you are in the future right now. And that is something we have to understand. We are always in the future. There's nothing else we will ever experience. We, yeah, and the future is right now. And that was very intense, and made me very emotional, and kind of made me want to hug my younger self to tell her she's doing everything right, even though so many people will doubt her and there will be so many obstacles. And that's all I will tell her, that if you keep going and believe in yourself, that it will work.
I honestly thought you were going to say that if I could go back and tell her something, I'll tell her to remove her wisdom teeth before
Also,
December of 2023.
100%. 100%. I wanted to do so because when I was 18 and in school, who cares not going to school? That would have been cool. But now I cannot do shows or cannot do this and this and this. It's like so dramatic. That is a good point. Maybe I tell her that.
Maria, it was a pleasure as always to speak with you about the band and about the record. Thank you very much for taking the time. All the best. I hope to see you at some point in time on stage doing what you do best. Thank you once again.
Thank you for having me. It was very nice.
Thank you.
And I hope to
Bye-bye.
see you too. Bye
Bye.
bye.